How well you do an exercise is the foundation to your success. Technique isn't everything, it's the only thing. Hip training is one of those things within our fitness culture that is both incredibly important, often neglected, and done in terribly inefficient ways for a number of reasons. Number one is you gotta understand that no matter what your body is doing, unless you're laying on a back pad or something, or you're sitting down, your hips are incredibly important. A lot of people say, oh, your core, very important, train your core, gotta have a strong core, seat of power and stuff. Your hips are technically just as important as your core. In many ways, they are part of your core. So if your core is strong, but your hips are weak, you still got nothing. You're running, kicking, climbing, jumping, nothing. Plus, weak hips will greatly increase your risk of injury in your lower back, your knees, all these sensitive joints. So very important to have very strong, stable hips. But when it comes to usual hip training, we often resort to these kinds of machines. The overgrown, massive thigh masters, if you will, that basically use your hips, some of the very few muscles in your hips, very small amount of muscle, to pull your legs apart or squeeze them together. It's okay. It's like a lot of machines. They're not terrible or anything, but they're so limited and they take so much time and you need a gym membership and stuff. I got something much, much better for you. And it's much better because of the following characteristics. Number one, your hips are a ball and socket joint, which means that they have a huge amount of range of motion that they are responsible for. Okay, now, take like the bicep. Very easy to use on a machine because it's a very limited type of motion. There's a little bit of twisting going on, but for the most part, this is it. That's all you get out of the bicep. But your hip, being ball and socket, it's kind of like your shoulder. We got all of this type of range we got to cover. But we're sitting on machines and we're just doing this. So imagine like if you had this for just your shoulders, and that's all you do. That's all you ever do for your shoulders. You would expect your shoulders wouldn't get that much out of it. You'd still be leaving a lot to be desired. Well, that's what we're doing with the hips. The hips, your legs, huge, big motions, up, down, left, right, swinging. None of it's touched with those machines and most hip activities. So we need to cover a big range of motion. Number two is balance and stability. Your hips are their primary job is not necessarily to move anything or move you, but to stabilize and control. So when you step, your foot plants down, everything can kind of just go all loosey-goosey and crazy, but those hips keep everything nice and solid and in control. This is why strong hips are such a big part of your performance, because every step that you make, every jump, every kick and stuff, you're relying on your hips to transfer the power in the most efficient way possible. So stability, control, and balance have got to be part of your training. And finally, too, it's not just the muscles in your hips. There's really not so much hip muscles. I mean, you got your gluteus medius, minimus, and maximus, but you've got your inner thigh. Okay, but these are muscles that extend literally your sartorius and everything. They extend down the entire length of your leg. In addition, this balance and stability and a lot of this range of motion is also accomplished very much from the muscles in your hamstrings, your quadriceps, hell, even your calves are part of that process. I mean, one of your quadricep muscles attaches above your hip bone. So every time you pick up your leg and use your hips, you're using one of your quadriceps. So in order to maximize the effectiveness of your hip training, we need a massive amount of range of motion. We need to use balance and stability, and we got to get the entire leg involved from basically your hip all the way down to your toes. Here's how you're going to do that, and you don't need a single machine to do that. This is an exercise that I have used for a number of years. Very good for strengthening the hips and the characteristics needed in like Taekwondo. Works really good if you're a soccer player as well. Very simple. You just simply stand on one leg. You lift the other fully locked out leg. That's key. Lock out the other leg, lift it straight up in front of you, and then slowly swing it out to the side, and then all the way back around, pause, and then swing it back in front of you. This single move right here will accomplish All of this, as well as get all the muscles in the outer hips, the inner hips, the front of the hips, the back of the hips, and every single place in between. A lot of times I give this exercise to people who have done the classic in and out style hip exercises, and they're always finding weak points through this exercise, little cracks that they missed with their classic exercise. To really amplify this one, when your legs are in front of you, squeeze your legs together to stabilize. As your leg swings out to the side, you're using more of your abductors, the outer hips, to pull your legs apart, kind of like a wishbone, so to speak. And then as you come back around, you're once again pulling your legs somewhat closer together on your center line, and then you'll repeat it on the process back behind you. So give it a try. Let me know what you think down below. If you have any questions as well, till then, be fit, live free.